What's up, guys? So, yes, I'm in this nerdy looking polo. Actually, the polo is pretty cool. Right now, it looks kind of like it's broken, but um, yeah. Um, what was I even saying? Okay, so hey guys, how's it been? It's been 3 weeks since I last posted a video, and I've fallen behind on Naruto and Bleach and so forth. And if you've been following my videos, you should have known that I predicted this would happen. And I hope none of you guys unsubscribe. I know my subscriber count did drop by one, but really the point of this video is to talk about Naruto ending. And I know I've fallen behind in the manga, but whenever I get the time, I know I will get the time eventually, I will be doing chapter reviews on the ones I've missed. Maybe just one big video on all of them. And so I haven't I haven't caught up with Naruto because I am a couple chapters behind. But I just want to talk about the series in general. And I've been saying this a lot, and a lot of people who have been denying it have also sort of owned up to the fact that you can tell by the chapters that this is the concluding point of the whole series. And it's very clear with every new chapter because you can't top this. After this ends, you can't top it. Like every big character has been introduced, and you can't top this power level. It's kind of like DBGT. You've gone to the point where everything is ridiculous. Like the person sneezes and the planet blows up. You can't really top it until, well, you technically could if you were imaginative enough. I probably could. But should I even get into this? Okay, I'll get into it a little bit. You could definitely do something where it's like a straight up DBZ battle, and it's like freaking planets blowing up, galaxies blowing up, and then they're fighting. And then you can top that by going beyond the universe, and then whatever's outside of the universe, you can have Goku fighting whoever, and there you go. You can keep going from there. But let's be frank here. Let's get back on track. For Naruto, it's very clear that it's ending pretty soon, and I apologize if I haven't been uploading videos lately. You guys have been warned, and I told you guys just be grateful for the videos I do upload. And so I'm here today with this sort of dorky haircut, my glasses, but a semi-decent Ralph Lauren polo, which is kind of messed up on this side. I don't know why, but I'm here to talk about what Naruto meant for me, because I know for a lot of people, I was just talking to this one guy, this one friend, and he said, he remembers all the way back to middle school when he was reading Naruto, and it was released already in English. And I'm sure if you wanted to, you could look up on Wikipedia the exact year, but I don't have that right on me. And that's saying something, because my friend, he's like a fifth year in college right now, so that's at the very least 9 years ago. And this is one of those things that's for not everyone, but a lot of people, it's been going on for a large chunk of their life. It's almost like Toy Story. For me, Toy Story was something where I was pretty much the age of the main character, the main child, Andy, for every video. When Toy Story 3 was released, I think I was finished 1 year of college, so I was a little bit off. But for the most part, it was very, very tragic and heartfelt when I watched the final Toy Story movie. And it's the same sort of deal with Naruto, and I'm not going to go into a sob story here. We've all had enough of those. If you don't know about my other channel, youtube.com/whereyoulaugh, there's enough sob stories on there. So this video is just going to be a brief summary, and you guys know brief means like 50 minutes for me, but I'm going to try and keep it short because I do have work to do. Um, so for me, first off, Naruto has been going on a long time. It's longer than 10 years. I mean, by the time it hit America and was released in English, it was already a success. That's the only way it can really transverse and go overseas in the first place, unless you're really lucky. So for me, I stumbled upon it, and was it the first manga I read? It was one of the first, not the first. But basically, I came across it through the bookstore. Like if you go to high school or middle school or elementary school in the US, you have these sort of annual book drive things where you can buy books. And I came across this giant book, which was really not a book. It was anime. It was the Shonen Jump monthly book. And if you've ever seen these things, they're huge. They're very thick, but really it takes you like less than an hour to read the whole thing because it's comics. And it was very unique because like you had all these American novels and books at your annual sort of book drive or whatever you call it, book sale, where Barnes and Nobles or whatever company comes in and they sell all these different books to the children. And it was unique because first off, it was definitely sort of Asian, and it wasn't like the few American comics that I've seen there. And it was definitely not what 80 to 90% of the books were, which were novels, straight up text inside. And it was very unique, and it was even more unique because it was read from back to front. And so I went about this thing just I think I can't even remember how I bought it because back then we were kind of poor. But for some reason, whether because I read half of it there and smuggled it out, probably not what happened. But I bought one copy, one month, and then I liked it so much that like I bought like a used copy from a classmate that was a real jerk for half price. And they were like $10 each or something, $5 to $10 each. And if you guys don't know what they are, it's pretty weekly or monthly jump, whatever it's called. It's this thick book, and it just gives all of the Shonen Jump like manga at the time, the latest chapter of each. So you'll get like chapter 797 of Naruto or chapter 314 of Hikaru no Go. And Hikaru no Go was like the one of the very first I read, and like Naruto was in the back. It was just some obscure thing. It was very, very popular, don't get me wrong. In fact, the cover was Naruto, but for me, I was more interested in Hikaru no Go at the time and like a couple others. But very quickly, I think I stumbled across Naruto. It's very hard to remember, but from there, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. But then again, you know, it was just this random chapter in it, and I didn't know what was going on. It looked really cool, but it just ended there. And it's hard to remember, but from there, I think what happened was months later, I sort of remembered because I actually went to a bookstore for some reason, and there's this huge manga section, and I was like, oh, I remember this stuff. And then I just sat there because like there's this whole thing back in the day where a lot of people, well, not a lot, but quite a few Asian families and Asian groups at the very least, and some white folks too, they would just get free readings of brand new books at bookstores. They'd go there and read the book there without paying and then just walking out. I remember that happened a lot for books like Harry Potter when they were first released. I saw people sitting there just reading it and then walking out without buying it. And it was really cool because, you know, with the library, you had to wait, and there's a waiting list, and the book was all crumbled and used, and there's boogers in it. But with the bookstore, it's like a brand new book, and you could read all of it. And they have like bajillions of copies, so there's no waiting. And most of the time, they had like comfy couches and stuff to sit. So That's probably why Borders went out of business, because Barnes and Nobles realized how exploitative the customers were being. So they were smart and they installed coffee shops in their bookstores first, and they sort of exploited the fact that, okay, you're not going to buy our books, at least be tempted by our coffee and condiments. And that's how they made a lot of their money. And Borders didn't, and then they lost out. Anyhow, back to my story. So then, I was the guy there, and Naruto was the first thing, because it was one. I can't remember if it was the first, but it was one of the first that I ever went to, and I just sat there and read. And I know One Piece was a big one too, but Naruto was definitely one of the first. And I was there and I read, like, each time we went to a bookstore, and I can't remember how. Oh yes, this was how it was. Every Sunday after church, I would ask my mom, "Can we go to a bookstore?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, sure." She didn't. I don't think she knew I was reading manga there. I guess she thought I was reading actual novels. Maybe when I started, I began with novels, but I very quickly moved to graphic novels. And so I think I went through like 20 volumes of Naruto, and that's just 20 volumes, 20 books. That's still like only 100 chapters, but it it took a lot of time, and there was a lot of like stuff to catch up on, because like there's sporadic moments where I couldn't go, and then I had to recall and then reread stuff, and it's hard to remember, but from there, I'm pretty sure I eventually transitioned to reading them online, because at the time it wasn't all as like strict as it is now. There's all these websites with every single page uploaded and scanned online, and it was completely free, and most of the time they were crystal clear. For One Piece it wasn't the case, because first off, One Piece is like hundreds of thousands of pages, and on top of that it's like half of them are really crappily scanned, unless you go to a really good website. But at the time it wasn't stringent, and there wasn't like all these copyright files and lawsuits going on. So I remember going to the website One Manga. That was the big one at the time. Now it's got taken down because of copyright, but at the time it was, I can't remember how, but I guess I couldn't go to the bookstore as frequently, and I was on the computer bored, and I googled it and I found it, and I read. And I'm intentionally leaving out all the intertwined stories of all the other graphic novels I got into, and just sticking with Naruto. But from there I read Naruto, and for Naruto it was probably the biggest one, because for other manga it was hard, because a lot of them were long and a lot of them got very boring. But Naruto, despite it having boring parts, I'm not gonna lie, Naruto isn't perfect. In fact, a lot of people think it's crap, but there were boring parts for Naruto. By the way, did you see my headband? This is an Itachi headband I wore for Halloween. And this thing, man, this thing looks really legit. And here's the thing: despite Naruto being so prominent, I was very surprised how few people even knew what this was. I asked a lot of people, and some were like, "Is that Dragon Ball Z?" And then others were like, "I have no idea what that is. Should I know what that is?" That I got that a lot. Should I know what that is? Which really, really surprised me, because I mean, Naruto, it's huge. It's like the biggest anime. Well, actually, One Piece is actually more successful than Naruto. Technically, it sold more copies, but it's one of the biggest. And I'm very, very confused why nobody has heard of this. Well, not nobody, but again, I didn't expect it to be something like World of Warcraft, where it's actually a very select denomination, where you only really see its large numbers when you have an organized gathering. Otherwise, a lot of people don't even know what it is, which is very surprising to me, because there's hundreds of thousands of players online. but it's the same thing. And so, back to my story. For Naruto, I got bored sometimes, and I dropped it occasionally. But it was the one thing where I was the most interested, and I came back to it constantly. And then there's certain breaks, and then I came back to it again. And it was the one thing I think that I didn't have as many huge gaps, because like for other manga I had huge gaps where it got so boring, and I plowed through every chapter and chapter, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And then I took like year-long breaks and had to reread the whole thing to catch up because I'd forgotten. It was a whole mess. I never took that huge breaks with Naruto because, sure, it wasn't. There was definitely boring parts and stagnant moments, but for the most part, I kept on with it. And when I finally caught up to the latest chapter, I don't think I ever really stopped. There were weeks where maybe I took a break for a month, but then you only miss like 3 to 4 chapters. You can catch up really quickly. But for the most part, I stuck on with it for years, and I just checked it for like every week. They would just release the latest chapter scanned online for free, and this was something I kept up with on my free time. I didn't really talk about it with a lot of anyone really, and I just check it and read it every week. And this was something we did for years. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. And I think for me, anime I only got into when I hit the Sasuke vs Naruto first fight. And it was simply because, first off, that fight was roughly like 50 chapters long, and I got sick of clicking through all the frame by frames. So I was like, screw it, I'm going to try out anime. And it was actually really good, but for whatever reason, I didn't. I think I went from the anime for about 10 episodes, and I guess it was just harder to find because of copyright, and I quickly went back to the manga. On top of that, it lags behind the manga, so the episodes weren't released as quick. And it's not like Toriko in Funimation where it's legally allowed to be able to watch. It's not like that anymore. You can't find it online for free. And so that's my story in a nutshell. And it's kind of sad because it's sort of like, okay, here's this guy, and most likely what's going to happen is it's going to be like DBZ or Dragon Ball GT, where the series ended and that's it. Like it's no longer this current up-to-date thing. It was a masterpiece, but like Harry Potter, like DBZ, all these huge things at the time that we thought was so awesome, 100 years from now it's just going to be this old dude talking about this old boring thing. And I really hope that doesn't happen with Naruto. I really think that this is something that's golden, and at least for the next 100 years this should be something that should be preserved and respected and admired. And people who stumble across it 20 to 30 years from now, despite it being finished and done with, as it's very clear that it's going to happen, that it's going to be something that people will still enjoy and not think of like, oh, it's just some old thing, it's an old cartoon, it wasn't that great, or it's too kiddish. I mean, we get that a lot right now. I mean, a lot of people think it's very childish, and I don't think that's the case necessarily if you really get into it. And so that's all I have to say in a nutshell. I could extend this on for another 10 to 20 minutes, but I got stuff to do. So as always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Peace.